Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
If you've been dating for more than, say, 3 minutes, or you've been married for more than 30 years, the question, what's for dinner, always gets the same answer. It's a tough decision. And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I just want you to know, sometimes the toughest decisions in the world are the small ones. And it's amazing that sometimes those tiny little decisions, they seem inconsequential right now. In fact, you're thinking to yourself, why is it so hard to decide what we're going to have for dinner? Why do we have this conversation every single time? It seems to take forever. We live in a small town. There's not a whole lot of options, and there's still too many choices. Now, if you think dinner time is that complicated, that confusing, that daunting to make a choice, try asking a 10-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up? Michael Jr. says it very cleverly. He said, I was talking to my son the other day. He was very young at the time, and he said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, a doctor or a dinosaur. Well, I guess you could be either one. I'd be really proud if you were a doctor. I would be amazed if you could figure out how to be a dinosaur. But in that season of life, choices seem wide open. We have our imagination at hand. We can do anything we want to do. And then day after day, year after year, decade after decade, it seems like our choice is narrow. It's almost like other people begin making our choices for us. We could stop right there and go down a rabbit trail for about 6 months talking about governments and schools and education and forms of government and how much they tell us who we are and what we're going to be and what we're going to do for a living. And wow, that's hard. But that's not where we're going today. Where we're going today is asking those hard questions before you get asked a hard question. See, decision-making doesn't always have to be in the moment. In fact, if you've ever trained in martial arts or any kind of high skill, I have a grandson, barely in middle school. He's already a chess champion. What does that mean? Well, that means he's pretty good at not just making the decision for the moment, but planning 4, 5, or 6 steps ahead. And he's not just considering his own options, he's looking at yours too. He's looking at everything you might do so that he can figure out what he should do. Billionaire Patrick Bet-David recently published a book called Your Next 5 Moves. He also talks a lot about sequencing. It's not just about making a decision, it's about making the decision in the right order. If you've been listening to the podcast over the last several episodes, and if you haven't, go back and watch them. Trust me, it's worth your time. But I've mentioned Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins has a very core belief that your state, then your story, and then your success. See, a lot of people try to get those out of order. They want the success that the strategy offers, and so they jump right into the strategy. But if you jump into the strategy and you start doing things, but you haven't fixed the story in your head, you have a problem. So you have to decide, have I cleaned up my story? Or am I going to be the guy that gets a $100,000 grant, a $100,000 client, and I don't know how to use the money? Because in my mind, the rich get rich, the poor go broke, and it's the rich's fault. I hate being rich. So the minute I get that money, I want to get rid of it. I want to shuck it out of my life as fast as I can. It's going to pass right through because the story in my head doesn't say, you got 100 grand. You better make sure that you have the funds to facilitate and deliver the strategy that your client was promised. That's number one. Number two, you better make sure that you've got the money put in the right place for sustainability and growth of your business at the next level. Because it's really easy just to spend it as fast as it comes in, to spend it unwisely. That's a challenge. But remember, this is in the strategy phase, but it really started in the story phase. But remember this too. We often get stuck in the stories, the BS, the belief system that we brought to the moment. We look at the past, we look at our current circumstances, and we believe, most people believe, the past plus the circumstances equals the future. When Tony says you got to get your state right to change your story, and you got to get your story right to predict the future, otherwise your strategy doesn't matter. Many people go with that backwards. I got a great plan. I got a great business plan. I know what I'm going to sell. I know how many I'm going to sell. I know who I'm going to sell them to. I know what my cost of goods sold is. I've got it all figured out. If you've ever watched Shark Tank, I want you to think through that process and ask, do they have the state, then the story, then the strategy, or do they already have 1,000 of these things in their garage and they're trying to figure out how to sell them? And that's why they're on Shark Tank. They want a partner who can help them figure out how they're out of order. Most of the people who arrive on Shark Tank, if they spent a couple of hours with Tony Robbins, they would probably have a different result and not give up part of their business. Because you got to change the state first. What is the state? It's the emotional way that you approach the story that melds together your past and your current circumstances. Let me say it another way. It's your attitude. It's how you think about what you feel and what you feel about how you think, or how you think and what you feel. You can mix those around, but if your feelings and your thoughts come together, you have an attitude. An attitude is also a state. So if you think the rich get rich and the poor go broke, you feel upset about that, you get an attitude about money. That attitude about money informs your belief system. Your belief system sabotages the best strategy in the world. Ask me how I know. I can give you a whole long history of that. Now, the challenge for many people is they get to the place in their life where somebody asks them that really complicated question. What do you want for dinner? And suddenly their belief system says it's got to be within the budget. It should be healthy. Do we have enough time to go to the place that I really want to go to? Is it going to cost more? Is the line going to be long? Is it going to be healthy food that's within my diet? Is it going to be something entirely different than that? Has that place even gone out of business? And all of those scripts are already running in our background. They're already infecting and affecting the decision we're about to make. So the plan to go to dinner on a certain night, at a certain time, in a certain place, well, that's the strategy. Does it fit in the budget? Do they have the kind of food that I want? Do they still have my favorite thing on the menu? Those are all questions in the strategy phase. But the story that says, is it even in my budget? We can't afford that kind of thing. We can't afford to go out. I don't know about you, but if you've been to the grocery store recently and bought a loaf of bread, a jar of jelly, and a jar of peanut butter, you spent about as much money as a dinner at Olive Garden. I hate for that to be true, but unfortunately it is. So how do you decide? How do you make those decisions? Well, I'm going to give you the hardest aspect of making critical decisions. Not about dinner, about bigger stuff like, where do I invest? How do I hold on to my money? Do I put that money in stocks and bonds or gold and precious stones? Well, you better figure that out because money is changing. I don't know if you've been paying attention or not, but just in 2026, we're what, 20 days in? 20 days in to 2026, and the world is already shifting to a new way of looking at currency. Gold was about $1,000 an ounce when I got out of high school. It's almost 5,000 now. That's huge. But it changes the way you invest, you save, and you hold your money. Well, that's about your state. What is your attitude about money? Do I spend? Do I save? Do I debt? Your attitude about money is going to change your story about money. There are a lot of people, and I could throw the names out there, but I'll save you the heartache on it. There are a lot of people who say, you've got to save like nobody else so you can spend like nobody else. Okay, it's a reasonable strategy, especially if you have an addiction to spending, retail, therapy. But then there are those who say there is such a thing as good debt and bad debt. Now, let me tell you something. If somebody comes to you with an offer to do business, your strategy might be, do I have that amount of money in the bank? Am I going to get a return on my investment? How long will it take me to get my money back? But if the story that you have about money is a mess, because your attitude about money is a mess, the best strategy in the world doesn't work. And what happens? The opportunity comes and you're not prepared. So you don't get lucky. Opportunity passes you by. Luck waits at the intersection of opportunity and preparedness. If you're prepared, you've already corrected your story about money, you've already changed your attitude about money, you can tell a better story about money, then when the money opportunity shows up, you know how to execute on it. If you've already decided, I don't drink alcohol, the temptation to get drunk and drive home is non-existent. You don't have to have a strategy for the Friday night when you have too many beers. If you don't drink at all, it never comes up. I've been the designated driver since, well, honestly, since before I had a driver's license. I've driven people home who were too intoxicated in their car before I had a license. That's not the best strategy. But see, I had long before developed my own attitude, my own state, my own thoughts and feelings about alcohol. The story in my life was, I don't do alcohol. I'm just not interested. And the strategy was, for more than 40 years, I've been the designated driver. Always. That doesn't take a whole lot of planning. You know what I'm saying? If I've already decided I'm not a big fan of Congolese food, when I get to the Congo, what do? I look for American restaurants. I look for things where I can pronounce the name of the menu items. I look for the fish that doesn't still have eyeballs in it. Because the story in my head is, if the fish is looking back at me, it's probably not ready to be eaten, and I'm not ready to eat it. That's a different story than somebody else's story. I've got an attitude about food that I think could bite me before I bite it. That's an issue for me. That's my own attitude. But that attitude informs my story. That story informs my strategy. We're going to go to dinner with my wife. And I say, I would love to go to Wendy's. Let me tell you, for 31 years, that has been off the menu. I can go by myself. My kids love to drench their French fries in their Frosties, but my wife does not like Wendy's hamburgers. There is maybe 5 times in 31 years of marriage that I said, let's go to Wendy's, and she went, sure. 99 times out of 100, the answer is no, absolutely not. In fact, sometimes I use that as my leverage of story to say, where do you want to go? I don't know. Well, then we're going to Wendy's. No, we're not. And quickly I'll get 4 or 5 options. There are things that are just off the menu. It's not even a discussion. We don't even have to think about it. There's an attitude about it. There's a story surrounded it. That eliminates it or adds it to the strategy really fast. The same thing should be true if you're a leader when you're talking about career choices, education plans, who you hire as a mentor, as a trainer, as a coach. Who do you bring into your life to help guide you in the direction that you want to go? Those are decisions that shouldn't just be strategies made in the moment of crisis. There should be a story running in your head already. When the opportunity comes to do this, I'm diving in with both feet. In fact, if I have to save money so that I can do this when the opportunity comes, I'll start saving now. I'm going to prepare now for when the opportunity comes so that I can get lucky on the backside of that. In that same ideology, think about it like this. John Maxwell says all the time, I became an overnight success and it only took me 20 years. I bet you could ask just about anybody, from comedian Matt Rife to Pete Vargas to Russell Brunson. None of them woke up one Monday morning with a new idea and went, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. None of them did. They started off with nothing and they worked really hard, probably harder than anybody else around them. And they invested their time, their emotion, their heartache, their stress into an opportunity that was yet to arrive. The result was, when opportunity came, they were prepared. And luck wasn't that complicated. It just showed up. It seems like it just showed up. No, there's a whole lot of preparation that happened long before that. When I work with my clients in the area of story power, one of the things that I tell them is you should have 100 stories in your arsenal. And I think of the guy who's got the quiver of arrows on his back. What is the guy from the Marvel comics? Is it Hawkeye? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. He can fire them at a moment's notice. He can pull them out of his quiver and put them in that bow faster than most people can fire a gun. It's because he's prepared. He's trained. He has his armor ready. He has his ammo ready. How many people have been called to the stage to speak, asked to stand up in a regular morning meeting or a network meeting to share an idea, and they freak out? Well, look, if you're a professional leader, a professional speaker, there should never be a moment that you're not ready. Now, you may not know that you're going to speak. That doesn't mean you're not ready. What it means is you've prepared ahead of time. You've got an attitude, you've got a state. I'm energized by getting on the stage. I love it when I have an opportunity to share with people. I love it when I have a chance to challenge the way they think and add new ideas to them. That's how I add value to the world. Then every chance I get to do that, I want to do that. And so the minute I walk into the room, I begin measuring up. Who's here? Who's the audience? Is there an opportunity? Will an opportunity arise? And am I ready when it does? Well, I've got 100 arrows in my quiver. I may only need to fire 1 or 2 of them. But the reason there's 100 of them is because I never know when that opportunity is going to come. I never know who's going to be in the audience when it does. And I never know what they're going to ask of me. So I want to be ready for everything. What that means is I've practiced, I've rehearsed, I've scripted, I've crafted stories over and over and over again. Some of those stories I know I could tell this story, and if I just start it 30 seconds earlier, it changes the entire audience. If I start it 45 seconds later, it adds a new value that they wouldn't have gotten before. I could compress the story just a little bit, leave a couple of details out, and add a powerful call to action that becomes profitable in an instant. That's what I train communicators to do. Why? Because you don't decide to speak when you have the contract for the keynote. At that point, no strategy in the world is going to get you. If you've got the attitude, I am a professional speaker, I will be ready anywhere, anytime with something powerful, impactful, actionable, life-changing. If you've already made that decision, you don't make that decision in the moment they need a speaker. You make that decision weeks, days, months, years before that, and you get ready. You get ready, you get ready, you get ready, you get ready. And I don't mean you're getting ready to get ready. I mean you're getting prepared. So when the opportunity comes, you can jump in there like a ninja. If you're not making those decisions, if you're not telling that story in your head, if you're not planning for that in your attitude, when that moment comes up, you're going to be a part of the crisis, not a solution to it. One of the other major decisions that come up for leaders is how do you guide somebody forward in life? As a mentor, how do you point them in a direction they should go? In my library, in the training room on the other side of this wall, we have books from the greatest analyzation tools that you can imagine. The DISC assessment, the Florence Littauer, the Strength Finders, the Working Genius. I even have a book, I don't use it, I'm not a big fan, of the Enneagram. But all of those tools are out there in the world. Anybody in the world could use them as a coach, as a mentor, as a leader. You should be implementing them. You should be helping people to discover who they are deep inside. Work on that state, work on that story, then give them a strategy. And if you're not doing that, you're not leading them well. Understand that there are a lot of people who want to be led, but the incompetence isn't in them, it's around them. It isn't in them, it's over them. It's overseeing them. It's the boss they have right now who can't see the potential in them. One of John Maxwell's most common phrases is see everybody as a 10. What does he mean by that? He means look at people for the potential that's in them, not the circumstances they're in. Let me say that again. Look at people through the lens of the potential in them, not the circumstances they're in. Those are drastically different. State, story, strategy. Most people find themselves trapped in a story because they've taken the past and the current circumstances and said, that's the equation that builds my future. It is not. It never has been. If you change your state, change your story, you can change your strategy, and that will change your future. When I say I help people tell better stories better, the first half of that sometimes is the biggest half. Tell better stories. Better state, better story, better strategy. Better state, better story, more likely you're going to find success. The challenge is when we find ourselves in an environment where the people that we trust to lead us, to guide us, to give us direction, to give us insight, their story is a mess. Their state is a mess. It looks like the crab's in a barrel. They don't want you to succeed. The only thing they got against you is, well, you made it further than they have. You got the payoff and they didn't. You got the break that you were prepared for and they thought it should be theirs. Oh, trust me, I've been on all sides of that. I've spent most of my life fighting against those who should be leading me, should be guiding me, should be giving me direction, and instead they're competing. They compete instead of collaborate. That's not a good thing. But the number of times that the boss, the leader, the manager, the holder of the key of opportunity doesn't see the potential in the person they should be elevating. They see competition. And so they shut them down. They thwart them. They redirect them. They remove that opportunity. It's a little book. I picked it up a while ago. Haven't finished reading it yet. This is Devon Franklin. The book is called The Success Commandments. And on page 89, he says, rule number 2 of the 10 is no isn't always no. Now, I'm going to skip through what he's teaching here because it's a little different than what I'm talking about today. But he pulls out some characters, some people, some names that you know. And I want you to hear these names through the lens of if they had a better mentor who had a better state and a better story, then their mentor would have given them a better strategy and they might have found success sooner. But the crab's in a barrel, the competition instead of collaboration, the my story is a mess and therefore I'm going to use it to corrupt your strategy. I think you'll hear it in these people. First one he mentions. He was fired from the Kansas City Star in 1919 because his editor said, quote, he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. He was Walt Disney. No imagination and no good ideas? Are you kidding me? It's 105 years later, and his ideas, his imagination are still shaping the thoughts of our kids from 2 years old to 22 years old. No imagination, no good ideas. Fascinating. How about this one? Back in 1954, still a nobody, and Jim Denny, manager of the Grand Ole Opry, fired him after just one performance, telling him, quote, you ain't going nowhere, son. You ought to go back to driving a truck. Elvis Presley is one of the best-selling musical artists of all time. But in 1984, he was fired from the Grand Ole Opry and told to go drive a truck. You see what I'm saying? When the story, when the state of those who should be managing and leading doesn't pull people up, see them as a 10, give them an opportunity, help reshape the story in them and send them on their way. Instead, it suppresses them, it keeps them down, it holds them back. How about this one? One of the best leading box office superstars of all time was told by executives on his first film that he simply didn't have what it takes to be a star. Harrison Ford. I don't know. Maybe they didn't see coming his greatest films. I don't know. Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Those are pretty big Harrison Ford films that have been around for a minute. Dude is way older than I am, and he's still acting, and he's still making millions. And I think somebody missed the boat saying, you don't have what it takes. After his first audition, he was told by the casting director, quote, why don't you stop wasting people's time and go out and become a dishwasher or something? He vowed to show them that he could make it, going on to win the Oscar and becoming one of the most respected actors in the business. Sidney Poitier. I'm just saying. Maybe you've been suppressed. Maybe you've been told by the people around you, you don't have what it takes. They don't want to give you the strategy. Trust me, I know the type. They tell you how only after you pay them enough. They tell you what you should do without correcting your story. And even when you pay for the how, if your state and your story is a mess, it's not going to work. You're working against yourself. A good coach, a good mentor digs into that story, modifies with you that state so that the state and the story and the strategy flow in the same direction. That's not what happened to these people. How about this one? Saw his first book, the iconic thriller, received 30 rejections, finally causing him to give up and throw it in the trash. His wife, Tabitha, fished it out and encouraged him to resubmit it, and the rest is history. Stephen King is now one of the best-selling authors of all time. Stephen King, 30 rejections on one book. How many's are written now? Don't you wish you'd been the publicist who got on a hold of that, or the publisher who got him on a contract for life? Big mistake. Big mistake. Yeah, you should be seeing the picture of Julia Roberts in, what was the name of that movie with Richard Gere? Pretty Woman. When they threw her out of the shopping mall on Rodeo Drive because she didn't look like she had the money to buy the dress. Yeah, you work on commission, don't you? Big mistake. I think publishers work on commission. Big mistake. How about this one? Was fired from his own company. On returning, all he did was create the iPod, the iPhone, and lay the foundation for the world's most valuable company, Steve Jobs. Look, I don't care where you're at in your life, age-wise, education-wise, career-wise. Tony's onto something. Get the state right, get the story right, and the strategy will work. If you start with a strategy, you spend a whole lot of time banging your head against yourself, looking in the mirror going, I can't really accept that I want to do this, will accomplish this, can move forward with this. It's just not there until you change that story. And you can change the story with the little quotey quotes. I love the way Tony says it. It's almost the clinical definition of an insanity to walk out in the garden and go, I have no weeds, I have no weeds, I have no weeds, I have no weeds. I don't care how many times you repeat it. The weeds don't die. Pulling them out of the ground, adding some insecticide, adding some pesticides, adding some weed killer, perhaps then it will die. But pulling the weeds is changing your attitude. It's changing your state. It's not just accepting that there are weeds in the garden and I'm going to lie to the weeds until they go away, or I'm going to pretend that they don't exist. No, you got to do some fixing. You got to get in there and look at the things in your story and go, is what I believe about the past even true? Love the way Tony talks about that story. He says, when the man came to the door at Thanksgiving and gave them food, his dad's story was, I'm a horrible father. I'll never be anything more than that. I don't take charity. It's a bruise to my ego. Tony's story of the exact same incident was, my gosh, there are good people out there who actually care about us and want to give. See how drastically different those two stories are? Same situation. They modified the state. And when you change the state and you change the story, the strategy works. Tony's on target to give away 1 billion Thanksgiving dinners because of the one he received. How many books are in you? How many movies are in you? How many opportunities are in you? How many songs are in you? How many stories are in you that you should be bringing to the world? But some yahoo has said, you're not good enough, you're not qualified, you're not capable. I think we could do better. You should move along. How many of those yahoos have the wrong story in their own head? They have the wrong state. And so their strategy is to get rid of you so they don't have to compete with you. If you're a leader, if you're a mentor, see people as a 10. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Work for their potential, not their current circumstances. Help them change their state, change their story, change their strategy, and you will be the biggest hero in their life. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for access to our extensive media library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. Begin your personal growth plan at storypoweracademy.com for leadership development and communication skills training.
Most leaders suffer with imposter syndrome. The story they're telling in their own head is, I can't do this. I've never had the evidence of it. I can't prove it. I just think it's a good idea. Unfortunately, that story may be the albatross around your neck to keep you from growing your business. Now, how would I know? Well, because I lived with it for years myself. And I'm going to tell you, if you can change the stories in your head, change the stories come out of your mouth, change the stories in your heart, you can change the quality of your life. You can change the life of people around you. Story power is about transformation. It's about being a better communicator, whether you're talking about speaking to your team, speaking to your customers, or speaking from the platform. When you master story power, you learn to tell better stories, more productive stories, more encouraging stories, and you learn to tell them better. Jump on to storypoweracademy.com and click on the suite retreat at the top and join us. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith,